What up? Welcome back to another episode of Mock Draft Monday. Today we have Bengal. I'm going to be watching Bengal's video, as you can tell by the title of this video. He just released this a few days ago. I've been saving it, haven't seen it yet. I've been saving it for this video right here. So let's go ahead and get started with this.
But we'll start the draft. I do believe it's going to be CJ Stroud at this moment. Things
I
really
definitely
high
agree
on
with that.
Anthony Richardson
I
in
think
the
Stroud's the
building.
pick right now.
Whether or not that ends up happening, listen, there's a lot of time between now and the month when we actually start day one of the NFL draft. But
It's absolutely
I
true.
would be
There's a lot of
surprised
time.
if AR went over either
Stroud
Young or
is
Stroud.
the
But
favorite right
think
now,
Bryce
and I
Young's
think
going to be the second overall
McCown
pick if CJ
has
Stroud
a
is the first.
pick for him.
The Panthers are
So
pretty clearly high on CJ Stroud in the building, and they don't really have a reason to throw out any smoke screens. They pick number one. They can get whoever they want. Kind of the same thing with Bryce Young. Seems like the Texans really, really like Bryce Young. And in this scenario, which seems likely right now, Bryce Young will
this really is my kind of first two so far. Let's see if my three falls as well.
be available too, and the Texans can get their quarterback of the future. And then we get to a really interesting spot with the Arizona Cardinals. They could stick and pick. You got some great options. Will Anderson Jr., even Jalen Carter, if you're okay with the off-the-field stuff. But I think given the Cardinals' overall lack of talent on the team right
Trade.
now, bringing in a new, and that is going to be for Will Levis. I think he's a little bit better.
So he took Will Levis. This is a different pick than I've gone. Typically, I think that the Cardinals will just stick here and pick with probably Will Anderson. But, it's definitely not a surprise in a way. I mean, the Raiders need a quarterback, and with how they're going to go in this class, they have to get to three if they want one for real. I mean, there's just no way they can get one at seven. Maybe Will Levis will fall to seven, but that's you get one guy, and I don't necessarily know if Anthony Richardson will fall that far. I think if he's there at excuse me, five for the Seahawks or six for the Lions, they could very well take him, even though they have a quarterback already.
Better of a fit for the Josh McDaniels offense. Very pro-style offense, or at least pro-style structure in Kentucky, even though the offense was a bit of a disaster this past season. Levis didn't really have a ton of talent around him, but does have a big-time arm, athleticism, competitive toughness is cited by a lot of different sources I've talked to, and that's something that teams could really, really value. So Will Levis ends up being the pick here at number 3 overall, setting up the Colts at number 4 to go Anthony Richardson.
Wouldn't be a bad pick.
At the top, I know 4.
With what's going on right now with Lamar Jackson, I also could see this pick being traded to Baltimore if Lamar would go to the Colts. And I would think that this pick would still be the exact same, but for Baltimore potentially. Anthony Richardson is pretty much like a raw Lamar Jackson. I mean, there's a lot of similarities there. The mobility, that being their key trait, and then the throwing. It's funny. I mean, even their passing abilities are both pretty limited, so those are both similar. Definitely could be the pick at 4 for Baltimore if they were to have it as well.
Quarterback Seahawks at number 5 with Will Anderson Jr. on the board, Jalen Carter.
That would be an absolute steal if they could get Will Anderson at 5. I mean, if the Cardinals trade down, I definitely think that could happen, but that would be a steal. So good for them.
You still could go IDL in the first round or in this draft, on day 2. But I think with Will Anderson Jr. on the board, you look to go edge. He's a very, very good player. And then the Lions on the board at number 6. They made a number of good signings, I thought, in free agency. Not a lot of those are long-term deals, so I think they could still end up targeting corner, even though they've signed a litany of different defensive backs. But I think Christian Gonzalez here on the board at number 6 is just
I agree with this. I don't think just because they signed Sutton and they signed Emmanuel Mosley that they're done with corners.
I can't believe we pass on Jalen Carter to go with a corner.
I do think Jalen Carter is the front runner pick. But for the sake of the draft, you have to switch it up. You don't want to have the same draft every single time. So
6'2", 200 plus pounds. Runs really, really well. Gonzalez is one of the better cornerback prospects in this class, if not the best. I think he could easily go top 10. Saw corners go at number 3 and number 4 last year. Could very easily see a corner or 2.
Gonzalez also needs some time to get acclimated to the NFL. He's a little bit raw, so that would help a lot, I think.
But if a team likes someone like Gonzalez or Devin Witherspoon or Joey Porter Jr., you might see these guys go off the board. Deonte Banks very, very quickly. Cardinals at 7. Jalen Carter, still a very good option on the board. Cardinals really just trying to take the best player available. However, I think it is going to be Tyree Wilson. There are just some questions with Jalen Carter that could allow him to
That's definitely possible. Carter could be the pick,
now,
but
maybe he goes to number 5. I think that's probably
with Will Anderson off the board. If you want to edge, Tyree Wilson's definitely the pick there.
3, right? But I think Seahawks, Lions, Cardinals, all could feasibly take Jalen Carter. But if they want somebody who doesn't really have as many
I
problems
don't
off
think
the
Jalen
field like
Carter, he's
Jalen
going to
Carter
fall.
does, they
He
could look
can't
to
get
go a
past
different
10.
direction. I
If
know
he's
the
there for
talent
Philly,
is
I don't see them
unbelievable. We've been
taking
hearing about
a
Jalen
half
Carter for
second
so
to get
long
that
now, and
card up to
rightfully
the
so. He is
podium.
a
They
very,
will
very
draft him
good
at 10. I
prospect.
don't see him getting
Just
any farther
teams
than
could
that.
be scared about the off the field stuff. We've seen it happen before.
But
We've
he
seen guys
definitely
fall in
could
the draft.
fall nonetheless.
Jalen
I mean, he
Carter
was supposed to be
could
the first
fall in the
overall pick.
draft, and
So
a couple teams could pass on him. But I still think he does end up going top 10. So 5 and 6 are spots for him. So is 7, I guess. The Bears at number 9 could be a spot, even though Ryan Poles seems to only want the high character type of guys. The Eagles at 10 could be a great fit to reunite with some of his teammates from that national championship team from 2 years ago. Jordan Davis, Nakobe Dean. Like, there are a ton of options here. However, with Carter still on the board at 8,
Jalen Carter to Atlanta.
IDL is such a
Georgia
big name
guy.
for that team, and he's just kind of sitting there.
They do have Grady Jarrett, but he's a little older, and they could. I mean, Jalen Carter's a stud of a player. As long as they can keep him clean off the field, he'll be a great player in the NFL.
And at number 9, I'm going to have the Bears go with Peter Skoronski.
That's my favorite pick here.
Skoronski's really,
You
really
know,
good.
they trade down, they keep Justin Fields. You got to keep him healthy.
I know the Bears.
You get him, play him at left tackle, be perfect. I think.
Expected to stay at guard as well. Cody Whitehair maybe moving back to center. So you could go with maybe more of a true tackle like Paris Johnson Jr. or even Broderick Jones here. But Skoronski's just so good that you could very easily.
He's such a safe player.
Play right tackle for Chicago. They have.
So this is interesting because New England's typically a team to trade back, not up, and they definitely do need a tackle spot. So that could be a possibility for sure. But this makes a little bit of sense there. But
of mid-round picks in here. The Eagles don't really have a lot. So I could very easily see the Eagles moving down from 10 here. Pick will still end up taking a tackle pretty high. And at number 10, we have Paris Johnson Jr. there. We have, as I mentioned before, Broderick Jones, who I think those will be the first 3 tackles off the board.
Oh, absolutely. Those are going to be the first 3 guys, no doubt.
I know Darnell Wright is very, very good. I know a lot of people like Anton Harrison if you want a more pure pass protector. He's a little bit smaller. So there are options, right? But the Eagles here move down. Patriots move up, and we are going to go Paris Johnson Jr.
Paris Johnson is a pretty normal pick, I think, for the second tackle off the board. Even the first, maybe. So, pretty normal. I think also the Patriots would be a great fit for them as well.
At number 10. Titans at 11. I think they would really, really like to have at least one of these guys available on the board. Tackles are starting to fly off the board. This could potentially be a trade down spot as well. However, I am going to have them sticking and picking and seeing 3 offensive tackles go right in a row with Broderick Jones
to Tennessee. It's a huge need. They have Taylor Lewan leaving now. He just got cut this season, so definitely a pick that makes a lot of sense as well.
It just seems like too great of a fit. So I know we've had 3 straight offensive linemen. The Jets are still definitely in need of an offensive lineman. They would be caught in kind of a tough spot with the 3 best offensive tackles in the draft off the board in this scenario. I got him going with Myles Murphy.
Myles Murphy's a guy who's fallen a lot in a lot of draft class.
Teams seem
draft
to be a little
boards,
bit more
draft
split on
mocks,
him.
whatever you want to call them.
Same thing with the mock drafts I've seen. Murphy's been anywhere from still in the top 10 comfortably to maybe even falling outside of the first round.
Yeah,
I do think
that'd be a great pick for Texans, though. I mean, they need that defensive line to be cleaned up bad. They really need that. Some help there in general. So getting Bryce Young for the offense and Myles Murphy for the defense would be a cool add to me.
Certainly look to favor that player if they think they can bring him out and not what we saw in 2022. I think Murphy's still going to end up going pretty high. And the Texans are just a team that quarterback now in Bryce Young, but their defense ends up being the guy for me at number 12. Jets at 13. The top 3 tackles are off the board. Now, the Jets could still go tackle. Darnell Wright, I think, is the one that stands out the most. I think they could also absolutely consider an edge rusher here and then take a tackle with one of their picks at the top of the second round. They have 2 inside the top 45 now following the Elijah Moore trade.
I do. That's
a
good add for them as well.
But again, tackle is just so big of a need that we are going to stick and pick and go with Darnell Wright here.
That's a really early slot for Darnell Wright. He's definitely a good player, but that's pretty early, like I said. I mean, he's been projected more so at the back of the first round, but if that's your guy and you just know what you're getting at with him, then you got to take him when you can. There's no guarantee he's there later. So
selection of edge rushers available with only Myles Murphy off the board in that span. Yeah, I could see them absolutely taking defensive linemen. We know at this point how Howie Roseman likes to draft. It's defensive line, it's offensive line, but it's really defensive line high in the draft. Lucas Van Ness is here. Nolan Smith is here. These are both phenomenal options for the Philadelphia Eagles. In this scenario, I am going to go with Nolan Smith.
You
A lot of
trade
juice
down and
off
get the
the
best
edge.
athlete on the
Big,
defensive side of the ball in this
fast,
class on
explosive,
maybe.
and
So
a good
that's
option.
a
Some have thrown comparisons out there to Hassan Reddick. Not that I
yeah,
see that entirely, but I do get
that's
what they're saying with
that's a
the
great ad for even
pure
being able to trade
athleticism
back and still get
package
that.
and juice off the edge.
He's definitely
Nolan Smith
rising
could
up a
be a
lot of
very
draft
nice,
boards fast
at
right
least
now.
early
Nolan Smith
DPR
is.
fulfill. Such a goody pick here for the Packers or GM. I think I'm gonna go Jackson Smith and Jigba. They probably won't, but I could still see JSN being the first receiver off the board. Just a really, really talented slot receiver who's fantastic after the catch, really, really good route runner, and just kind of the perfect addition to this Packers receiving core that already has Christian Watson and Romeo Dobbs on the outside. Pick up JSN for the slot. This is a big-time weapon.
JSN would be maybe not the best receiver in this class. Maybe he's 3, maybe he's 2. Maybe you have him behind Addison, maybe you have him behind Johnston. But to me, if you're Green Bay, it doesn't matter who's on the board. JSN fits their slot, and they have Watson, they have Romeo Dobbs. JSN fits in that slot so well with those 2 other receivers on the outside. I think he would just be them. He just makes so much sense. You know, that just the team fit is just beyond perfect. So I think that just makes too much sense to not do.
For your offense, for Jordan Love, your
This has been a pick I've had in my
JSN
mock drafts
feels
recently.
Like such a great pick here, and not really in the Packers' MO over the past 2 decades.
Ironic, right?
I think the last first-round receiver they took was Javon Walker in like 2002, and then I think the next playmaker that they even had in the first round, like skill position receiver, tight end, it was Mercedes Lewis, of course, who the Jaguars took, I think, in the first round. Although, moving on to the Commanders at 16, the board has fallen so favorably for this to be a corner, and with Devin Witherspoon here. With
oh, wow.
Joey
I didn't even
Porter
think
Jr.,
about that.
With Deontay
Devin
Banks.
Witherspoon's fallen so far down this board.
Devin
I
Witherspoon
mean, he's been a top 7-ish pick every draft for a while now, so that's a major steal. Washington needs that corner position, and if he's there, I mean, if he's there 2 picks ago, they might trade up for him.
So Steelers at 17. Listen, I'm gonna be corny. I'm gonna be cheesy. I'm gonna give him Joey Porter Jr.
Per everybody else in the world.
Tackle they could take with pick number 32.
I don't love the pick, but if all 3 of the tackles are off the board at the top, then
off the board
including Darnell Wright's gone. I mean, I don't blame that pick at all.
On DeJuan Jones or Matthew Bergeron or Tyler Steen, for example, in round 2. Those are options. And then the Lions at 18. I've seen this connection so much that there has to be weight behind it. It's Kalijah Cansey to Detroit. Everyone's making the
that would be a good pick for them. They really need that interior just solidified in general. They have nothing there. That'd be a really solid pick.
When I watch Kalijah. Here we have the Bucs at 19. For me, even though Lucas Van Ness
is kind of falling a little bit.
For me, it has to be a tackle. It is such a big need for them, and with Anton Harrison on the board.
There's a lot of tackles going in this first round. You know, I don't. Definitely, it is a position need for them. Their left tackle spot is pretty rough.
Long term, at least, that's what you're hoping for. And you know, I'm tempted to go Lucas Van Ness here for the Seahawks.
They're flying.
Will Anderson early. I don't know if they're going to double dip on edge rushers, even though Lucas Van Ness is a completely different player from Will Anderson Jr. Lucas Van Ness is like the bulldozer to the Ferrari of Will Anderson, if you want to make that kind of comparison. Great athlete still, but power. Can play in the interior, 270 plus pounds. So Will Anderson's like 245, 250. Lucas Van Ness is intriguing for a team that still needs help on the defensive line. And just like we see with the Eagles, you can really never have too many. Seems like
O'Cyrus Torrence being to the Seahawks, I mean,
they love to take off.
He's a huge O-lineman. Made Jalen Carter look like a normal human being walking around out there.
O'Cyrus Torrence here at 20. I think is
not a bad pick at all. It's a little early for O'Cyrus Torrence, early for a guard, really, but not bad.
Listen, there's been talk about him going in the teens. I think he could. And here at 21, I think he represents good value. It's going to be Bijan Robinson for me here.
All right,
I know Austin Eckler.
Bijan Robinson is probably the 3rd best player in this class overall. Maybe even 2nd if you could argue it. It's probably Will Anderson, Jalen Carter, Bijan in no particular order. But the position value is just not there for a running back. But if they're going to lose Austin Eckler soon or within the year, that is a steal of a pick. I mean, that would be so great of a pick. I mean, he can do anything you need. He can pass catch out the backfield. He can run over anybody. He's a really good true runner. Where Eckler might miss some of that, he's a great receiver out of the backfield, and you can do a lot of things with him. But as a pure running back, he's not necessarily the best. Although he's still a great player. So Bijan, that would be like a great replacement for Austin Eckler.
Might not end up getting traded. But Bijan is such an awesome option, and with Eckler approaching 30 years old, I think he's 29, right? Bijan is just an awesome option for the future. You get the fifth-year option by taking a running back in the first round. Bijan's probably a top 5 talent in this draft, maybe top 10 at worst. He is one of the better running backs in the league tomorrow. I really believe that. And it's not just because I'm a big Texas Longhorns fan. We got the Ricky jersey in the back now. He's just that good. Ask around. Everybody says so. Bijan is incredibly talented, can actually run in between the tackles, and is an awesome option as a receiver. So the receiver,
Bijan's really
Bijan
like
has
a
that same receiving
overall
ability, but
back. I
also
mean,
is
you
a
can do
tremendous
anything you need with him.
runner of the football. I think he would do. I mean, there's a huge difference between taking a running back at 27 and 33. Yeah, there is, because you get the first-year option to extend him for another year, like, or fifth-year option. So I mean, it seems like a no-brainer.
That is a good ad for just
I don't
having
know.
Bijan. You can get
We'll
that
have to see
fifth
what
year
ends
on
up
there.
happening. Ravens at 22. Got Zay Flowers. Ton of speed.
I think that's what I had in my
Slot
last mock
receiver,
draft. I don't
maybe
remember
not
exactly, but I think that was
primary
it.
or exclusive slot, or even if he is a primary. The Vikings at 23. I'm in between a couple different options here. In the mock draft I did earlier, I went with Deonte Banks. And Deonte Banks is still there. So is Quentin Johnson. So is Brian Branch. A bunch of really, really good players still available, which is, I mean, what we see happen in the draft sometimes. But I don't think Deonte Banks is going to get by this pick. So he is.
They need the
option
corner
there
help
at
bad.
23.
They did bring
Vikings
Byron
get
Murphy in.
a
They
big-time
have
DB on
Andrew
the
Booth coming
outside.
back this year. You
Fantastic
get
athlete
Banks
as
and
well.
Booth on the outside, and
I've
then
heard
Byron
the
Murphy in the middle,
Jaguars
in the
love
nickel.
Brian
That's
Branch,
great.
or at least Trent Baalke does. So
Brian Branch to the
at
Jaguars
24,
is, I think that's a good
instant
pick as
starter
well.
at the nickel. Awesome,
Yeah, he would help
awesome
upgrade
pickup for
any.
Jacksonville.
He can play in almost
And
any
then the
secondary
Giants
immediately. I think. I mean, he's
at
movable. You can move him
25.
around.
You know, having Sterling Shepard back for another year.
They need
Wando
anybody
Robinson
who
still
plays wide
injured. I think
receiver in New
receivers
York.
in play. Quentin Johnson's here. Jordan Addison's here. I mean, Lucas Van Ness is still here. It feels crazy that he's been the one to fall in this draft because we've pushed him up as far as inside the top 10. But here he is still available. This is what happens in the draft sometimes. He's still going to end up falling. I'm going to go Jordan Addison here from USC.
Jordan Addison, that's
Still a
what
great
I've had, I
route
believe, a couple
runner.
times
Still can go up
now.
and
That's a
pluck the
good
ball
pick,
out
I
of the
think.
air.
I mean,
Worry about him in contested catch situations. but
he's a good
great
receiver in my opinion.
separator
I think
and could be a really
his
good
combine was a
option
little
for the
bit
Giants as a
iffy, but
long-term,
I think he
you know,
will still be a fine player in the NFL.
outside receiver. And in the first run that
Dallas
I
could
did
be
I had the
a
Cowboys
really,
taking
really interesting
Dalton
pick here.
Kincaid, and that would be an awesome get for them at tight end. But you have Jake Ferguson, you have Peyton Hendershot, even though Dalton Kincaid is a better receiving option than either of those guys. The fact that Lucas Van Ness is still available and edge is going to end up being a need for you, it's just kind of like stick and pick, go BPA here.
Not
I
the
know
most
Cowboys
exciting pick.
fans
I
are
think
not gonna love
if he
that,
slides,
the
then
value's just too
he's
good for a player that
like
could
really
potentially
solid
go
there.
top 10.
But
He's available at 26.
just like you just said, I mean, if he's a top 10 player potentially, and he's
we know Micah Parsons is a guy that moves
yeah,
around
that's
quite a
just
bit.
it's too much
And
of an
for Van
obvious
Ness, play
fit
him
there.
on the interior on 3rd and long, and then have him off the edge as a 4-3 starter on base rundown. Quentin Johnston here from TCU.
Quentin Johnson to the
Big-time
Buffalo
outside
Bills.
receiver, a ton of athleticism, and the Bills don't really.
Quentin Johnson to the Buffalo Bills. I actually really kind of like that pick. That's a different one than I've seen. That real number one type receiver, like body wise and just how he's his frame and all that. But him and Stephon Diggs giving him a real running partner. I mean, Gabe Davis is fine, but Gabe Davis is a splash player at best. I mean, he gets his when he can, but that's about it. So I mean, this is a real actual running mate for Stephon Diggs. So that would be a solid pick right there for sure.
Have anyone on the roster that looks quite like Quentin Johnston. You have a pretty good trio with Johnston, Stephon Diggs, obviously, and Gabe Davis.
I like
that.
Gabe Davis as a
They need
third
more
wide receiver than a
weapons in
second
Buffalo.
by far.
That offense is stalled out too much for how many playmakers it seems like they have. And then the Bengals at 28. So they went out and they paid. They paid Orlando Brown. Tackle still very much in play. It's just which one would you take? DeJuan Jones feels like a pretty good option. Keep him in Ohio with Orlando Brown Jr. expected to play left tackle. So that's what we're going to do here. With all the tight ends on the
They're just
board,
going to send
it'd be tough for me not to go
their
that
tackles.
direction. And I know I didn't. Kincaid,
Wow.
Mayer,
So they
all
would
the tight
sit,
ends
this
are
is
still
assuming they send
available. It's
Lyle
just tough to find
Collins
spots
and
for those sometimes.
Jonah Williams out, I'm guessing.
And I
So
am
that or they have the deepest rotation of
it's
tackles
hard
that
for
any
me to
team has
continue
ever
that
had in the
fall, 'cause
history
I
of
think
football.
they're going to go high. I just this is how it's working out.
What's that,
Darnell
6 tackles
Washington
in the
could
first
go
round?
top
That's
20,
crazy.
but here he is available at 29. No tight ends are off the board. It's a weird spot. And I'm almost tempted to give the Saints one as, yeah, Juwan Johnson's cool, but you got some great tight ends available in this class. I don't know. I mean, it feels like one of those guys is going to have to go. Like, I want to do Brzee as an option here. Mozzie Smith.
That's who I had last
feels
time
like
is
a great
Brian
option.
Brzee going to New Orleans, I believe.
It's just that the tight ends feel too good to still be available, but I'm going to go Mozzie Smith.
Mozzie Smith over Brian Brzee, that's
I
interesting.
don't know, man. I'm conflicted because I
They
had
need that
Kincaid
interior
being
bad.
the only round one.
Cameron
tight end in
Jordan's
this mock draft.
not
I
really a
picked
true
6
interior. He can kind of
in my
play
first time
interior
around.
/ edge, but
It just didn't
Mozzie
end up
Smith is
happening
that
way.
interior guy. He's a
Eagles
freak
at 30,
athlete, so that would be interesting for sure.
Probably wouldn't want to take a tight end here. Yeah, they do run some 2 tight end sets. You have Dallas Goedert.
Dallas
I don't
Goedert's a
really
good tight
think
end,
you
but
gotta
yeah, I
spend a
don't know if
first-round
you
pick
need to
on a
spend
tight
the
end
first
here.
round to get another tight end.
Eagles at 30.
The tight end's class deep,
I'm
so
gonna
you
do
can
what
get away
seems
with
to be
that.
A very Eagles pick. I'm going to address the offensive line. We're going to go John Michael Schmitz here from Minnesota.
Man, John Michael Schmitz, he's
He's
climbing.
going to be a center.
He's climbing in the
for them
first round a
most
lot
likely.
lately.
And I know they drafted a center in the second round last year.
I think
Jason
that'd be
Kelce
interesting.
back for another year. Could potentially kick outside to guard. Maybe like John Michael Schmitz there for the future. But the fact that you can get such a talented center and now learning
really
from
talented.
Jason Kelce for a year, it feels
But
like
I think he'll end up being a second round pick. I don't think
a
he'll go in the
scenario
first
where
round
Howie Roseman
right
would
now. It
definitely
could change by
consider,
the draft, but right now I think
doing
it's the
that.
second
Could be a
round.
guard too,
Now,
potentially. But
the
with
difference between
off
pick
the board,
30,
I feel like
31
that's
or
less
whatever,
likely,
and
maybe like Joe
this
Tippett
is
there.
none,
And then
but still.
Wrapping up the draft, I am finally going to get one of these tight ends off the board. I think edge is in play. I think
Is this the
tackle even
Chiefs?
still could be in play here with the addition of Juwan Taylor. I could still see it. Receiver, obviously, but same type of deal with John Michael Schmitz to Jason Kelce. We're going to do Dalton Kincaid to Travis Kelce. They also do like to run 2 tight end sets in KC. Just really haven't had the personnel to do so at a high level. Travis Kelce, obviously a monster, but you also have to factor in for Dalton Kincaid now at 31. Yeah. Feels like an absolute steal for the Chiefs. That is the first round mock draft. Got a little bit weird, but I mean, I could see some of these things happening clearly. I think.
All right, well, that's going to be it for this video. Let me know what you guys think about just what this mock draft came out to be, how Bengal did. And remember, like this video, subscribe to Bengal. He's already got 480K. Trying to get there one day myself, so sub to me as well. I would really appreciate that. But yeah, that's going to be it, and thank y'all for watching. Peace.